I love the art in this game, and I want my work to look more like it. That's why I challenged myself to learn as much as I can from the Genshin art style during the last month. I usually do messy artworks with no line art or any major composition, so I want to break down the techniques they use so I can apply them in my own work. I'm not trying to replace my current style, I just want to see how much I can improve, so let me walk you through all I did, going all the way from a simple portrait to a full-on splash art. This wasn't going to be easy, since it's really different from what I usually do, so I wanted to go slow. My first challenge was making a character portrait. They were perfect as a first step, since I could focus only on heads and the general technique, before jumping into bodies and composition. At first I was doing a one-to-one recreation of an existing portrait, but I thought I'd learn more if I studied the characters' faces and then made my own. So let me tell you a little bit about facial proportions and then we'll talk a little bit more about technique. Heads are simple proportion-wise. Every model has its own quirks, but the secret lays on two things. Bigger and rounder eyes make characters look younger, happier, and friendlier, while smaller or pointier eyes give a more mature or serious look. But also the vertical spread of the facial features plays a huge role. Tall models have the longest faces, while short ones have rounder looking ones. You can see how characters who are around the same age and height give different vibes by looking at their faces. But features don't really mean a single thing either. Depending on how you combine them, you can give your character a different look. Most characters will be somewhere in between this spectrum. This is more of a character design topic, but it's really important because it makes sure your characters look the way you want them to. As I said, I didn't really want to copy an existing portrait, so I decided to make ones from characters from other games. I decided on 2B from Nier Automata and Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. Then I made some sketches following the proportions I studied. I'm really happy with Cloud's in particular. The line art in Genshin's character portraits is really thin, clean, and readable. Inner parts of the characters are colored so lines blend better with the base colors. They also use inner rim lights whenever dark surfaces overlap. You can see this on characters wearing darker clothes, like Diluc, Neuvillette, and Zhongli. I personally never do line art. I just clean my sketches a little bit and then go straight into coloring. So I had some trouble getting this to look right. Adding color to my portrait was easy since everyone is under neutral lighting. Shadows in this style are usually the base color made a little darker and more saturated. But it's important to keep in mind how lighting is usually very soft, so I made sure not to push shadows too far. Here's how my portraits look. I really like Cloud's. It's unpolished, but I like how it looks. I don't really know where I went wrong with 2B. She just looks weird. After this I felt ready to take on something harder. I wasn't sure about what I should do, but I wanted to draw one of my most recent favorites, Escoffier. I like how they stylize bodies on this game. If I had to summarize it for you, I'd say big heads and long legs. Besides being skinny, almost every type of character model is around 55% legs and 45% everything else. This makes everyone look tall, even if they're not really. Just like with faces, every model has its own quirks, especially in the head-to-torso ratio. Head size itself varies the least, but surprisingly kids have the biggest heads by far, even larger than adult models. Ribcage size goes down little by little with every model, men having the largest ones of course, and kids having the smallest. I did some quick embarrassing gesture drawings for each body type which turned out interesting, then grabbed some references for a pose, got my proportion study and started drawing. Something really important you see on these drawings is that there's always some sort of implied movement, whether it be clothes, hair or particles. It gives the pieces a really nice and dynamic look. So I decided to give Escoffier a dress and have her hair flowing in the wind. At first I really liked how she was looking, but I did run into some trouble with her. Even with my study by my side, I was still having some doubts about the head size. Was it too big, too small? I still don't know. My troubles didn't end there. I went into this pretty much blind, with no plan at all. So when I tried to add details to her clothes, nothing looked right. I was using one of the hues from her regular outfit, but a lot brighter. I liked how it looked, but it was a little bland. So I tried adding some other clothes and colors from her palette. but it still didn't look that great. A huge part of what makes these characters look so good are their carefully chosen color palettes. Most characters in this game use very limited palettes for their designs. There's a lot of them who use analogous colors and a few complementary details. Some others like Nilu use a complementary color scheme. As I said before, a lot of the art is made under very neutral lighting, so color palettes get a lot of room to shine. Finally, I thought I'd rather have something plain over something muddy. And besides being messy, it doesn't look that bad. Her cooler eyes stand out from all the reddish tones around them. I think it looks pretty cool. I also added some reflection lights to the parts of her hair that were facing down. They do this a lot, especially on the TCG cards. They cast lights on the parts of the characters that should be the darkest. In hair, for example, it's great, because it helps you visualize both sides of the strand. It can give your art a lot of depth. The biggest lesson I got was that I needed to be more intentional. I have trouble improvising, so I wanted to take my time for the next step. It was time to study the TCG art style. This style is similar to the other one in many ways. A clean look with colorful characters, only this time, composition plays a bigger role. Maybe designing a whole new outfit was not a great idea after all, so I decided to work with another one of my newer favorites, Skirk. She was a great candidate, since I like her a lot and she doesn't have a card yet. Since I needed to be more intentional, I decided to look up some videos on composition. I rewatched these 2 composition tutorials by Foudo and decided to start with some thumbnails. I did a bunch, but I only liked a few. At first I thought of placing her on the lower third and putting the whale behind her. It did look kinda cool since it was asymmetrical and all, but it didn't really look like a character card. She needed to be more present. There's this other one where I borrowed Raiden's card composition. It's based on one of her idol animations, but it looks a bit too peaceful, not what I was looking for. One of the main ideas presented by Foudo is the shape hierarchy. You need variation in size and importance to create a good composition. Skirk herself was going to be my main shape, the large void rift behind her was my secondary shape, and the small crystal shards surrounding her were my tertiary shapes. I was trying to direct your eyes to her face, using contrasting values, details, and colors, while also making a visual flow using the crystal shards. Moving on to the actual rendering of the card. The line art for this type of art is a lot thicker, lighter, and saturated, and it goes from pointy to round very quickly. You can see how parts of the character that are slightly further behind on the image slightly fade away and take on colors from the background. Some parts of characters even have white outlines when receiving light. For shadows, there's a really nice combination in between soft gradients and cell shading. So I worked on it for a few hours and ended up with this. Even if I didn't manage to nail every detail, I still had so much fun making this card. I used brightly colored line art and made it thicker on darker parts of the character. For the composition, I decided to add some flows of energy behind her as well. They kinda make an infinite shape and direct your eyes back to her face. I wasn't too sure when I looked at my early sketches, but trusting the process paid off. After doing all that, I felt ready to take on the final challenge for the video. This was the part of the challenge where everything comes together. I'll talk a little bit about splash arts in general and then I'll tell you my plan. As you can probably tell, most of them heavily reference the character's gameplay. Composition is usually very straightforward, with a very light use of perspective and neutral lighting. For mine, I don't really want to reference the Traveler's moveset that much. I want to make my splash art more in the vein of the ones they do for character skins. There's 3 aspects of her character I want to tap into: her powers, the scale of her journey, and her flowers. This was a lot to fit in a single drawing, but I think I have an idea that works. After a few thumbnails, I came up with this. She'll be standing right in the center in front of the vast space, holding a sword looking at some stars, while standing on a colorful flower. I wasn't completely sure about how I was going to execute the details, but this looked promising. This time, I was putting more focus on clarity. I realized I was having some trouble following the head proportions. This is a problem we can run into when we're too concerned with form, so things start to look stiff. Doing gesture drawings usually helps me when I get stuck like this, so I took some freedoms here and there. It wasn't going to look perfect anyway, so I might as well have some fun with the face. For the background, it turns out aggressively coloring the flower rainbow was not the greatest idea. It was hard to balance the dark space and her light clothes with the intense colors I wanted to use. so I settled for having some rainbow glow emanating from parts of her dress. And this is the final result. Even if it doesn't match the quality or complexity of official art, I'm really happy with this. The main takeaway I got from this challenge is that if I really want to take my art to the next level, I need to be intentional and give more care to each moment of the process. There's so many small details to think about, but when a piece really brings them together, it's hard to look away from it. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for sticking around for this long. I'm sorry I disappeared for months. I hope you enjoyed this one and learned something from it. Bye.